You've got too much to do and not enough time. So here is how to outsource as an online coach. If you don't know me, my name's Yusuf. Me and my business partner Johnny have helped over 1,000 coaches to become profitable online. And we do that with a team of 18 incredible people. And I'm going to break it down in such a way that you can do it today and buy back some of your time immediately. You are never too small or too early to start outsourcing and to start hiring, but you need to do it smartly, because if you do it wrong, it's just going to cost you time and money, and you'd have been better off just doing it all yourself. Here are the 5 steps that we'll go into. So time audit, document and hire, then delegate and feedback loop. Every quarter, Johnny and I do the 100 units of time exercise, and that's basically an audit of our calendar. Every 15 minutes, we just check in and go, what am I spending my time on right now? Over time, you can get a visual map of where your week is actually going. And it's a kind of a heartbreaking exercise to do, because you come into Monday morning thinking, right, I've got all these plans for how my week's going to play out. And then you just get railroaded by all these interruptions and all these things. And you end up realizing that your plan for the week and your actual week are so different. Expectations versus reality don't match up. Sometimes that happens through gradual drift. So as weeks go on, the plan starts to deviate from the reality until eventually your week looks nothing like how it's supposed to. The same thing happens with calories or sleep or meditation or whatever. There's always like a behavioral drift. So here is where my time went, and I've blurred it out in case I accidentally GDPR myself. But like I say, these things slip over time. And what I've noticed from tracking my time and giving it a coding of where did the shortfall come from, where did the slip come from, was that distractions fall into 3 types: internal, external, or I was on task, but I just vastly underestimated how long it would take. So you can see a video for that in the free template that you can download in this video. But I was basically finding that my poor boundaries with time, or inboxes, or calls, were starting to really add up. And that's because as a business owner, you tend to think that you're superhuman and that only you can do this task right. It's kind of a little ego stroke of like, oh, Yusuf, you're so amazing, you can do all this stuff yourself. Like, cool story, bro. You're just rewarding yourself by giving yourself more work. As much as hustle culture will tell you otherwise, don't lose sight of the main goal. The goal is not to work hard. The goal is to produce output and to build leverage. So why am I telling you this story? It's because this is the exact narrative that we tell ourselves as to why we couldn't possibly hire, because only I can do it right. And if I give it to some VA in the Philippines, they're just going to absolutely fuck it up. That is a failing of you giving the instructions and not a failing of the VA. It's like saying that calculators are rubbish because they don't understand words. Like you have to use the right tool for the job, and the quality of the output that the calculator gives you is down to how well you use it. So the general rule is, when you're hiring someone, you can't expect that person to be doing what you've done at 100% straight away. You have to find someone who can do what you're doing at 70% as good as you can, and then you train them up for the remaining 10%, and then you have to be happy with that. Over time, they will learn and develop, and if it's the right person, they will get better at it. And then you've created a flywheel. The other benefit, obviously, is that you free up your time, which you can then direct to the bigger needle movers in your business. That approach works great for freelancers and processes. The other side of that is talent hires, where the philosophy of hire great people and leave them alone kicks in. Somebody who's a real specialist and you just leave them to it. I know it's cliche, but you only have 24 hours in a day, and most of that time is spent maintaining this thing. Sleeping and eating and time on the toilet. I mean, I spend 5 hours on the toilet every single day. That's going to get clipped, isn't it? So if you only have the finite time, and you can't yet play with the fabric of space and time, then you've got to make sure that as a business operator, as the allocator of resources, that you're not wasting your time doing stuff that could be done for cheaper or better by someone else. As you grow your business, eventually you start to feel like Homer Simpson in the nuclear power plant, where you're just pulling different levers and you have to know which lever to pull. If you hired a marketing agency for 100 grand and they were cleaning the windows in the office every day, you'd be like, stop it. Like, what are you doing? I'm paying you 100 grand to do this. Whereas when you're spending your own time doing low leverage activities, it's often easier to justify why you should be doing it rather than delegating it. At least for me, and that's because of this this feeling that, oh, but someone else might not quite get it right. That's fine. That's the point. Every business is a set of processes, and all of those processes are worth money, but you are only one person. And your job is to identify the highest value process at any point and to do that one thing. Obviously, that assumes that you have a skill and that you can add value. And if you can't add value, then what are you trying to outsource for? So with that wonderful preamble, let's go through time audit, document, hire, delegate, and feedback loop. So step 1 is use a time tracker, something like Cold Turkey or Rescue Time, to get an idea of what your week looks like. If you want to do it old school like me and Johnny did, then manually track everything that you do in every 15-minute block for 1 week. You'll learn so much about the way that you're spending your time. Then look at all of those tasks. You'll quickly identify what are the big leaks in that. And then you can say, okay, which one of these are automatable, which you can then find some software that can handle that thing. Zapier, if this then that, data entry type things that you can use software integrations for. Then there's level 2. This is stuff that needs to be done by a human. DM outreach, simple video edits, repurposing content, that kind of thing. Then there's level 3, you need someone who is a senior or executive type person. So these are creative video edits or coaching or community management or sales. So you can then identify, okay, out of all the tasks that I'm spending my time in my week doing, which ones of them are level 1, 2, and 3? Obviously, you shouldn't be doing anything that's automatable yourself manually. Level 2 stuff, you can usually create an SOP for and give it to a freelancer with relatively low friction. And level 3 stuff, you need somebody who really knows what they're doing and can take ownership of that task. So now we get on to stage 2, documenting. So get clear on what is the outcome that I want from this process. Do that first, validate it, make sure that you can do it and can explain it before you give it to someone else. Otherwise, if they don't know what they're aiming for, then of course you're going to end up with just a mess. Because no matter how good someone is, if they don't know what you're actually asking them to do, then they're not going to produce anything decent. All right, so you've done your time audit, you know where your week is going, you've identified what tasks are level 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to give you a Notion template where you can start tracking these in different areas of your business. If you want access to the template, just click on the link below. What you then need to do is film yourself going through the task. We recommend using Descript. We've got another video about that here as well. Video for everything. And that is to transcribe you doing the process. Literally just whatever the process is, just do it and talk through what you're doing. That'll generate a stream of consciousness that you can then paste into GPT with the prompt, turn this into an SOP. That's it. You now have a video showing the thing and you have a reference document as an SOP. That will not take you any extra time. It's literally just the time it takes you to do the task plus 5 seconds of pasting it into GPT. Next step is hiring. Now, you don't need to go to job platforms or anything just yet. You might have people in your network who would be looking for a part-time gig, or you can even just post on your socials and say, hey, I'm looking for someone to help with this particular thing. Please send me a screencast with XYZ requirements. And that in itself is a great filter, because if someone doesn't know how to send you a screencast or someone doesn't follow the instructions, they're not going to be any better once they're working with you. So you can bin those applications off. Let's say you've done that and you're like, actually, I want to look further afield and find some more hires. Go on to fiverr.com if you want a freelancer for a single project, or if you want something that's ongoing, have a look on Upwork or on onlinejobs.ph. That works fine for someone who you want remotely on a level 2 task in the long term. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you are hiring to buy back your time. So keep that in mind. And if you provide a process or a request or something, and you get 10 questions back about it, for example, please edit this YouTube video, and you send them a link to a YouTube video. If they're like, but how do I download it from YouTube and everything? Bin them off, because that is someone who can't use Google, and you don't have time to be explaining how to use Google to somebody that is meant to be saving you time. That character trait of, like, literally in 2024, it's just being able to Google something and being able to find solutions to things themselves without coming to mummy and daddy and asking every time, is just called high agency behavior. And that's really the key thing. It's actually more important than any specific skill set in somebody, because if they can find the answer, if they can work out how to do it, if they can work out who to ask, that is so much more valuable for you and for the business to help things really fly. Incidentally, that same trait of high agency behavior is the same thing that makes our clients successful. So if someone has that ability to find the right answers and Google the right things, they're going to smash it as an online coach because they're not waiting for answers on a plate. As you grow your business, you basically are copying and pasting your own competence. So any cracks in your process, any cracks in the team will start to amplify as you put more volume through the whole thing. During the hiring process, if you are looking for someone to do a level 2 task and you're not sure who to pick, give them all the same task. So for example, if you are looking for a short form video editor, and I'm sure your inbox is full of people offering this as a service, then say, hey, I'm going to pay you for this one project. Can you please pull out 3 shorts from this longer form video and send me what you've got? Pay them for the project. This isn't a free interview. I don't think that's ethically sound to make people work for free in case you might hire them. So you set aside a budget of £100, £200, whatever, to 5 people. Give them all the same brief and see what they come back with. Then it's very easy to make a decision of which outcome you like the most. If one of them asks you 10 different questions and struggles with the software or whatever, then you know that person, that's how it's going to be in the future as well. Okay, now we're on to delegate. So you've got somebody who's on board, you have an SOP or a process for them, and they're starting to get things going. Now you need to be careful not to overmanage or undermanage as you're working with them. Basically, you give them the process, you help them get up and running, you support them along the way, and then you are gradually taking away the guardrails so that they can really go to town with the process and improve it and become better at you than at it, so that you can then focus on what you do best, which is coaching clients. Now, as your business grows, you're going to have new processes. How do you decide what needs to be delegated and what doesn't? Dan Martell has a great rule for this. So you take your annual net business income and you divide it by 2,000. That's the hourly rate of your business as a whole. Your buyback rate is 25% of that. So if you can buy back time for 25% of that number, then do it and then use the time that you freed up to focus on higher leverage activities that move the needle further with your business. The target that we're aiming for is that that person does the task 70% as good as you can, and then you train them up to get to 80% as good, and then you leave them alone. You can then reinvest time into the more profitable parts of your business. So you don't just do it because it's cheaper or you do it better. You're thinking about what is the end goal. And really, if you're growing a business, you shouldn't just be hiring or outsourcing so that you can go and sit on a beach. I mean, you can if you want, but your business will stagnate. The goal is you do that so that you can put yourself in a position that adds the most value to the business. The same thing applies with your personal life as well. So there's a threshold of income where once it crosses a certain point, it makes sense that you hire a cleaner rather than doing it yourself, because that time would be better spent doing something that adds more value to your life, even if that time of adding value is resting in that 1 hour or 2 hours, because that time spent resting is important for the overall system. Final stage, the feedback loop. So this part is quite simple. You've hired, you've delegated, you've given them the task, you then review their work, and if it's up to standard, if it does the job, brilliant. If not, you need to show them where is the gap. You need to give them something so that they can spot the difference and bring it up to standard. Don't blame them for getting a process wrong, because it's usually like 99% of the time that you haven't explained it clearly enough, or the support that you've given them isn't enough to help them to achieve the outcome. Most people, if they're doing a job, they want to do a good job. They're not going to hand in sloppy work for no reason. So you do this in the initial stages by doing the task in parallel with them. So you say, okay, here's the document to edit, the person to outreach, whatever it is, and then you do it alongside them as if you were doing it separately. And then you show them, here's what I've done, here's what you've done. Can you see the difference? Can you suggest any improvements? And then each time it iterates and gets better. So that process shouldn't take too long. If someone is taking far too long to get it, maybe their skill set just doesn't match with what you've hired them for, or maybe your process and feedback wasn't good enough. But either way, by this point, you should have a clear idea of what that is. There's the 5 stages of hiring as an online coach. Hopefully that was useful. Download the Notion template in the link below, and I will speak to you soon.